Welcome to another BA Chat. I'm your host, Kevin Kuntz. Right next to me is the lovely, talented, beautiful, gorgeous, fair, and wonderful.
Oh, thanks,
Rachel
Mr. Kuntz. Rachel Kuntz, his wife. Thank you guys for tuning in. BA Chats exist because we believe in the testimony. Testimony means do it again, God. So when you hear good news, when you read good news, when you hear Jesus doing marvelous things in people's lives, and your heart jumps, that's appropriate.
Yep.
It's beautiful. That's a healthy heart. And that's when you open up your mouth and say, do it again, God. Do it in me. Do anything in me.
Exactly. It's an invitation. All you got to do is open that sucker up and RSVP. Respondem, what is that? Respondem
s'il vous plaît.
s'il vous plaît. In other words, you're coming to the party.
And
All right. And also for the second reason.
we've got such marvelous people at Bethel, Atlanta. Kevin and I have this wild story about how we even got to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And we thought it was so miraculous, and it is miraculous and beautiful until we got here, and every single person had an equally miraculous, like,
If
we're
not
just
more.
chasing God. We left it all. He said, come, so we sold everything. That's what we do here. We live in our car.
We came in a
Just kidding.
U-Haul and a Suburban. We're here.
And so anyway, so many stories, we just have to share them. And so our guests tonight are no exception to that. Brent and April Anderson, welcome you guys.
Wow.
Hey, thank you.
Hey,
Oh, we love you guys, true.
we love you. Thank you for having us.
Brent and April are some of our oldest friends in Georgia.
Yes,
You
they
guys
are.
were some of our very first friends in
Yeah.
Georgia.
That's
Awesome.
right.
How long
What was
ago?
that football game we
It
watched? Texas
It
Longhorns?
was Texas and OU, I think.
Something.
I don't remember
Nebraska,
this.
maybe.
Something.
We met you guys, and y'all were such just a cool drink of water. I love that time in our lives. Our kids were
Yeah.
all little, and we had Bible studies at your beautiful house in Sonoy. And
Good times.
They are good times.
Yeah.
Good
Was.
times.
It is.
Really
it
good.
was.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about you guys. Get our audience acquainted with the Andersons. Brent, we'll start with you, man.
Okay. Yeah, so Brent Anderson, pretty much born and raised in the Atlanta area. I've been here, in Sonoy, Tyrone, Noonan, all of that area, for I guess about 10 years now. We currently live in Sonoy. We live on Main Street in downtown Sonoy. And, just so many opportunities as we've lived here. This kind of feels like home to us. We built houses when I got out of college, and we moved around to different places and had really good opportunities where we lived in other regions of the Atlanta area. But when we moved to Sonoy, something in our heart just called us and said,
Wow.
yeah, this is home for us, as much as it can be anyway.
It's one of the first things I remember about you guys is how much you love Sonoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
it's
you've
just-
always felt very called.
We really felt like the Lord gave us, just a heart for that city, for the people, for, the potential for relationships, gave us favor with people, and we just love it. We put all of our proverbial eggs in the Sonoy basket, so it's been
Yes,
good.
we did.
April, tell us a little bit about you, girl.
I am April Anderson, spouse
Woohoo!
to Brent.
Woohoo, woohoo.
I'm the Yankee his family warned him about.
Yes.
Not from Georgia. I'm from the Cleveland, Ohio area. But I saw a bumper sticker one time that said I'm not from the South, but I got here as fast as I could. That's me.
It's you, girl.
That is
It
me,
is you.
especially this week when I call home and it's 20 degrees. It was 81 here today.
Yeah.
My mom is in negative 20 degrees in Wisconsin. So
Oh, welcome.
Yes.
I'm
I
so
know.
happy you're here. I know you are
am
too.
So happy to be here, especially in the winter. But yes, we have been married and living in Sonoy for 10 years. Like he said, he built houses. We jumped around and just same thing. And we both never had the same thing at the same time like that, just feeling like we were home and in a city that God had us there for a reason and a mission. And just like your story and so many of our mutual friends, it was so weird how we all ended up kind of in the same area, just feeling like God told us to go there or put us there. And we have loved it.
Mm-hmm. Got 4 beautiful kids.
4 kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
love
Yes,
your
they're
kids.
growing and leaving and making me cry. And I find myself looking at people's toddlers and breaking out into tears on a weekly basis because they're 20, 18, almost 17, and 14. So my youngest will be starting high school next fall. And I just,
Guys. Precious little people.
Yeah.
They are precious people.
They're turning into precious big people. So we're still praising God for the amazing creatures they are, and giving Him glory. We don't have much to do with that. We just try our best.
Oh, you guys do good.
But,
Okay, well, tell us what you're doing in Sonoy.
All right, so I guess about 10 years ago, maybe 11 now, I lose track of time, but we were called to pastor a church in Sonoy. That's kind of what brought us there. And long story short, it wasn't on our radar. I was in a career opportunity with Chick-fil-A at the time, and really felt like that was the direction we were headed, and enjoying it, and thought that was what I was created to do, basically. But the church we were a part of and helped start at the time, going through some transition in leadership, and we had been there from the beginning, so they asked us if we would consider leading forward, and we prayed about it, and just honestly, we said, Lord, we're the type of people that will do anything, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear that this is what you're calling us to do. And He spoke really clearly to us, probably more than we've ever heard, in the past or even since, about that opportunity. And we just jumped on it. We had no idea what we were doing. And
You guys made it look
Still
good.
don't.
It looked
That's
like
the
you knew
story
what
of
you
our
were doing.
life, actually.
it has been actually the story of our life for the last 11
Parenting,
years.
pastoring,
Yeah.
business.
The Lord just has your yes.
Yeah, I mean,
There is
serious.
grace.
And God is so good and graceful, grace-filled on that journey. We've learned a lot about what not to do. We've learned a lot about celebrating the wins, and
that's awesome.
just not thinking in terms of failures, but looking for God in the midst of every circumstance that we've had over those years. And it's been a beautiful time. I used to kind of joke around and say it was the best of time and the worst of times. And, we had some challenges, but ultimately it was the best of times because we experienced God's presence and His grace through everything, in so many ways. Can't even begin to tell them all.
Oh, we loved y'all's church. It was just a sweet, precious place. But when you were at the church and loved every single second of it, you guys always were feeling, and help me with this, help me with specifically with words, always to be in the heart of Sonoy. And you just, which first of all, we have to clarify, we are talking about Sonoya. All of our listeners are like, where are they from?
Yes, Sonoya. But, if you're from there, I
Right.
can't be recorded saying it wrong because people will hunt me down.
It can and will be used against you.
Yeah.
April, you're the one. There was that great looking coffee table book, and there was an elderly lady from Sonoy, and she says, it's Sonoy like boy.
Rhymes with boy.
Yes.
Yes.
And I was like, well, she would know.
Yes.
She's been here for 80-something years.
Exactly.
So we're talking about
Exactly.
Sonoya, but it's actually pronounced Sonoy.
Yeah, that's right.
But you guys always had this heart for Sonoy, and always in the heart. Talk to us a little bit about that, how you just wanted to be in the center of it.
Well, okay. I'll start with, I loved being a pastor's wife. I feel like I kind of broke the mold on that one. I wasn't the stereotypical, lead the women's ministry, the children's ministry. I really had a hard time with that. I really judged myself for that. I felt like I was falling short of the things that were my duty, so to speak. And we were part of a small group and kind of went through a what are they called? This little,
Just a training.
like a test. So one of those personality
Oh, yeah.
test things. And I came out like super evangelistic, which that I launched a nonprofit out of our small church, and that's where that began.
Are you
Lord
talking about Backpack
Backpack
which we will
Buddies.
totally hear about because it is cool.
All right, cool. Well, I guess I really struggled with feeling like maybe I was discontent in the four walls of the church, that my heart longed so much to be outside the walls. And not that I didn't love the church where I was, but you don't see enough hurting and broken people coming in, especially in the Bible Belt. There were times, but a lot of people were kind of trying out other churches, or, you weren't, I don't know. I just felt this, what I feel like now I could say is a holy discontent, not like a anything that was wrong with me. It was a stirring for something more, and to be, in the heart of the community where the lost people were. And this business opportunity that came to us in the package of a coffee shop. It was a place where we hung out, because all pastors hang out at coffee shops, and youth pastors, they don't like to be in their four walls. It's kind of getting out of the walls of the church and meeting people coming in and out. We just loved this quaint little place, and we always wanted to have something in the heart of the town where the people would be coming and going and interacting on a daily basis, that we would be interacting with people every day, not just on Sunday, we were dreaming up all kinds of business plans. Brent probably has, I think he still has like 14 websites reserved.
I'm a little ADD, if I'm honest.
Website domain names, I'm pretty sure we're paying like $300 a year on website domain names.
But you got it,
True.
man.
It's true.
You got those
Nobody
things.
else has them.
Ownership. Hey,
It's funny. I actually had somebody reach out to me recently to buy one of those. So I was like,
See? There you go. It was an investment.
You make that
We'll just-
$300 back
Price
like
just went up.
that, Brent.
exactly.
So I don't know if you want to speak to that, but that, once I realized, hey, this is okay. This is who God created me to be. I am more evangelistic, and not that there's not a place, because we love the church and we know that it was Jesus' heart. Jesus gathered at the church, but he also went out. And was spent his time in the midst of hurting people, and people have their guard down when they come in a place like that. We have had some cool opportunities, and I'll let Brent share one of the coolest in a minute, testimony. For those of you that don't know, Sonoya is home to The Walking Dead, and that's where they film. And so we keep saying that God called us to bring life where it's known for dead.
Perfect. That's exactly what you should say.
Yeah,
We're raising the dead in
Raising the
Sonoya.
dead raising the dead. I don't know what we
That
said. We
is
have all
fun.
kind of taglines that we have fun with, but it was particularly about someone who worked on the show, who was just kind of in a hurting place. I'll let you take that one over. But we've had, I feel like, so many more opportunities to just minister to people who just come in with their guard down and want to have a conversation, and you can just speak in. God will give us occasionally something very specific to say. And, it's life-changing for them. And they're kind of just taken aback by it, because they don't expect that with a cup of coffee,
Sure.
it was so interesting because Brent and I we ran around a lot, and he would just share his heart, and I would just listen to him dream about this. And I remember you dreaming about having a space in downtown that was a place where people could come and eat and fellowship, but it would be a multi-purpose building, and you were just dreaming into this. And I remember the day that you guys had the opportunity, and you told me about this, and I was like, he did it. He did it.
Exactly.
Oh my God. He
It
did it.
was. It was all of y'all's
that's crazy.
conversation. We loved it.
Yeah.
We used to think, oh my gosh, these are great ideas. And you always wanted to do it.
It's funny. I mean, I feel like I am a little bit ADD, and some of my journey, I'm kind of learning that that's more of a pioneering gift, maybe just looking for new territory for the kingdom to expand to. And at the time I was a pastor, and in much the same way that April was kind of struggling with some of the things she was, I wasn't feeling called to that stereotypical pastoral role, even though God through that time taught me, and grew me up in a pastoral gift or in a teaching gift. None of those were my natural, bents. And, all the time I'm like just looking out for opportunities to connect with people kind of on their terms, speaking their language, not just my language. And we've had so many different ideas, so many different things that we've thrown out there. And this one just happened to stick, and it was so miraculous, really. I mean, if we look back on it, just the journey of like dreaming and just recognizing this is in our heart to connect with people on a daily basis, invite people, serve them well. What better way to do that than around good coffee and food and the table, and we just dreamed about this. I have so many emails that I sent to different people just trying to make it work, and nothing was ever sticking. And we just our current story, we talked with the previous owner of the cafe on multiple occasions. Hey, if you ever...
Which we need to just say it. I don't think we have. You guys are the owners of the Sonoy Coffee Shop.
Yeah, exactly. It's Sonoy Coffee and Cafe. Yep. On 1 Main Street. So if you're ever in town, we're down at the bottom of the hill on the left. So you can't miss us. We just talked with the previous owners and said, hey, if you ever think about selling, let us know, and there was never really a right time, but probably a couple of years we pursued them. And I don't know, maybe it was one day the refrigerators,
kind of jokingly.
Yeah, the
We want this
refrigerators
place.
broke down, and maybe a couple of people called out sick, and we said, hey, you ever want to sell this place? And they were like, yes, let's talk.
Today's the day.
Let's talk.
Sign here.
Yeah.
But I just have to say too, they had a heart for the community, and they remodeled this old building, or they launched revitalization in this town.
Yeah.
And people thought they were crazy because it was like this little ghost town. You're going to start this coffee shop. But I think, we had done a few things with them. We had done a worship night, like candlelight service in the cafe, Christmas Eve, and a couple things our church had done there. And I think that they recognized that we had the same heart for the community that they had.
Wow.
They didn't want it. They had so many people knocking on their door to sell that building. But it meant a lot to them for it to stay kind of what it was, not to come.
This is awesome.
Yeah, not to come in and be. I think at one time, like Verizon had offered them something for the bill. I mean, like big companies wanted to come in. First of all, they didn't want that in a small town. They wanted to keep it historic, and but so many people. And we didn't know this till after we bought it. I had 3 people, probably no less than 3 people, come up to me. Do you know, I've talked to them about selling that building, and I offered them this amount of money and this amount. And they just acted totally closed down to the idea. So I just really do think the Holy Spirit just hit their heart, and that they felt like we were the right fit, that we would kind of carry on the legacy that they started. In a way.
And the supernatural part of it was, just our journey at that time from a financial standpoint, some of the things that we had struggled through. I built houses, I mentioned earlier, and we kind of barely survived the downturn in the real estate market, and we're just feeling the weight of some of those kind of negative things, from the economy from that time, and we literally had no money. And we had a dream in our heart. We felt like God had called us to this place, to this little town in really the middle of nowhere, Georgia, that God gave us a heart for, and then paved the way for us to kind of enter into that dream.
Awesome.
Without going into the details, the basic premise is we didn't have anything, and God made this happen.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Verizon had gajillions, and you guys
That's
bought it with no
right.
money.
Yeah,
That's what I just heard you say.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Jesus.
And that's
That's how
truth.
he rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you loving it? Is it going so well?
Yes. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we love it, but yes, no.
Yeah.
We know,
Well-
and even the days that are hard, though, I think, what else would I want to do? If I could do anything, what would I want to do? And there's nothing that I would rather be doing. I do. We love it. I think we were meant to do it. But there's days it's absolutely exhausting. Just this month, we had like 3 pieces of very expensive equipment go out, and you're just looking at like, okay, God, but
I pretty much say, God, I don't know why you wanted this espresso machine. It's yours. Why'd you want it to break down?
help us out.
Hey, God, you got a problem?
Yeah.
No, really.
This is your problem.
Your espresso machine broke, sir.
Exactly. What do you want me to do about that? Yeah, but I will agree. Just for those who might not have ever worked in the restaurant business, it is a tough business. It is a very tough business. And, I think, again, we had no idea what we were doing when we
That's the other
started this
thing.
journey. It's kind of been a theme for us. But, we got there. We had a clear understanding that this is where God wanted us. He paved the way with, some significant provision. so all of the challenges and all the things that we've faced, the things that we are learning and have learned, just kind of pale in comparison to the reality that God's with us, And, there's been some times, I think April mentioned, sometimes we have to remind ourselves, we feel like the Lord, me personally, this past year, he invited me to remember, like throughout the whole year, because I'll be completely transparent. There's been some frustrating things and, just trying to care for staff and care for customers and do that with excellence and some of the challenges that you face in there, it can kind of weigh down on you a little bit. But the Lord said, just remember, what I've done. Remember that I'm here with you, and remember why you're here. And it has been a good reminder for me to, kind of step into our world, be present in that world, and look for opportunities for God to be at work,
Oh, you guys, that's awesome.
So I'm sure, how many days are you guys open?
7 days.
7 days a week.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so lots of life is happening in your establishment. So do you guys have like fun stories, like testimonies and things that have happened?
A favorite one?
Yeah.
But maybe your favorite, maybe 1, 2, or 3 that you
I'll share
feel
one,
at
you
liberty
share
to
one.
share.
Okay.
Because I know that to hear the heart of your, to hear the testimonies out of the heart of where you're coming from and how the Lord made this happen. I'd love to hear some of those. Yeah. Do y'all have any?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. In particular, like April said, people's guards are down. They're not really anticipating, kind of deep conversations for the most part. They're coming in for an end goal. So there was this lady who we've seen pretty regularly. She works on the show, and so when she's in town, she works on The Walking Dead. When she's in town, she's a frequent customer, I would say. And one day she came in with a friend, and they were on break from their show. And I was like, hey, that's got to be cool. You've been working 12, 14-hour days. I'm sure that's a much-needed break. And, how's it going? How's your break been? And she said, really, it's terrible. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't even know what I would do without this job. Something to that effect. It was it was really kind of I could tell she was heartbroken about being at home and not working. And I just felt like the Lord wanted me to kind of enter into that narrative a little bit and speak value and life into her. And, so I just started talking, and I just said, hey, I understand what you're saying. I recognize where you're coming from, but I just wanted to say that you have unsurpassable worth and value to God, and it has nothing to do with what you do for a living. It's because He's created you in His image. And I just, went on from there. I said, I know people who have wrestled with their identity that's kind of wrapped up in what they do. And, heck, we can't even have a conversation, with a new person that we meet without saying, well, what do you do for a living? It's kind of like the natural thing. And I just wanted to speak into them that God created them beautifully and wonderfully. And as I'm saying this, the girl that's with her is actually beginning to cry, and obviously kind of emotional through the whole thing. And when we got finished, basically they confessed. They said, you know what, thank you for saying that to us, because just this morning we were having a conversation that we really don't know what we would do if we didn't have this job. We wouldn't even know who we are. We would be in despair, basically. And I just felt like the Lord was there speaking identity and life into those ladies, and it was an eternal moment, And I was like, man, yeah, it was so good.
Brent, that's beautiful.
They love him.
You're an
love the
easy one to
coffee
love,
shop.
Brent Anderson.
He's the showstopper.
He's the showstopper.
The jaw
Jaw
dropper.
dropper.
The big papa.
You got it in there.
Told you I would.
You did. You sure did. Well, mine is similar. I think time and time again, probably the most common thing that we hear is it's it's so peaceful in here, or there's a presence in here, or people that have no context of anything spiritual will say good vibes, or what do they say? Energy. There's great energy in here.
There is.
Yes.
Energy has a name.
Exactly. But one of the coolest stories, there's a couple that comes in pretty frequently, and they have a special needs child who's in a wheelchair. He can't speak, and they honestly don't have a diagnosis for him. They have been through all kinds of testing. I think he's somewhere on an autism spectrum, but he can't communicate. He's precious. He smiles and he lights up the room, and he's just this beautiful child. But when they come in, they said, this is the only place that we can take him that he's calm and at ease. She's like, it's almost like there's just a peace in here, and he's peaceful when we come in here. And he's not, they said they can't really take him out. He's very sensory, are sensitive to, sensory and noise and lights, and he does fine the whole time. They said we were able to sit in here with friends for an hour, and it was, well, the coolest thing about it is the night before we'd had a worship night in there, and we were in there for 2 hours worshiping straight on a Sunday night after we closed with some people in our community. And so a couple people have mentioned specifically after those nights, there's just such a sweet peace and
It's beautiful.
And so that was the coolest thing for me. He gets easily agitated, and he's just calm the whole time he's there. So
I don't doubt it.
I was
That's
like,
awesome.
that's
Beautiful.
Jesus. That's the presence of Jesus.
Yeah,
and at the time I didn't know they were believers, but they are. I've
Awesome.
gotten to know them a little more, and so that's cool.
Oh, you guys,
good.
it's awesome. Those are dreams come true. April, tell us about your 501c3. We want to hear about this.
Well, that actually was birthed out of a church conference that I went to. There was some people just talking about ways of getting outside of the walls of your church and ministering to your community. Some of the stories they told were so cool to me because when you open that door and you just serve your community, even government offices, schools, you see what they were talking about in this conference was how then those agencies come to the church for help. And that's just how it should be, but so many times it's the opposite.
Right.
And I don't know, it just inspired me. I came back. I was in this particular workshop that I was in. They talked about this program called Backpack Buddies that a school counselor in Texas had started. She noticed some behavior changes in a student and realized it was hunger. That the parents had, the husband had left, cleaned out the account, and all of a sudden, this straight A, well-behaved student, grades were tanking, behavior was shifting, and she brought him in and just had a conversation and ended up finding out he hadn't eaten in a couple days, and he was coming to school not eating, and so she started keeping snacks on hand, and then realizing, hey, when they're at school, we can give them a little snack, but they're getting 2 meals if they're getting government aid, but then they go home, especially weekends, holidays, what do they have to eat? Sure. Most, like our kids, your kids, they live for the weekend. They live for Christmas break, spring break, they of having a break from school. These kids actually dread it. I was so naive at the time. We were kind of new to the area, and I just was like, I don't even know if there's a need for this in our county, not even realizing how huge Coweta County is, the county that we live in. And to make a long story short, we launched in the 2010-2011 school year and decided to send the bags of food home with kids on the weekend and holidays. And we started with 2 schools and 36 kids. And this year will be our first full year of serving every school in the county, including special needs schools, middle schools, elementary schools, high schools, which is over 30 schools. And we're going to probably break 1,000 students a week this year. So
April, I haven't talked to you about it in forever. That's totally huge.
Totally blown up in the last 2 years. We have some paid staff that's amazing. An awesome person who has been a volunteer for me. Her name is Lori Burnett. She has volunteered and been a part of Backpack Buddies since the beginning, just about, and felt it was time for her to leave her job and just called to tell me. And she was at a local church that helped us a lot. And so she just wanted me to know that she was leaving and what could I do? I still want to be a part because I'm not going to be through the church, And I was like, funny you should call, because once we took over the cafe, I really needed to bring someone on to take this thing to the next level. And she is exactly what she was just the timing. She was just sent by God, and has helped us just get to the next place. And it's been amazing. It's been the last 2 years. It's just been ridiculous.
I Googled recently volunteer opportunities in our area just to do with the girls, and you guys came up.
See?
I was like,
That's
back, buddies.
And we're literally right now trying to create more opportunities because we are overwhelmed with volunteers. I think we
You're
figured
overwhelmed with volunteers.
I think we added a second day. It filled up almost overnight of packing and putting the bags together. And, so we're now starting. This will probably be our first summer where we really start trying to go to other feeding programs and get them food for the weekends they can take home. So we're going to be trying to feed through the summer too, which is a huge need. So
Wow. So what do you need at this point? What would be helpful to you?
food.
Okay.
Food and money. I mean, honestly, we get food right now. We occasionally can get from a food bank in Atlanta. But for the most part, we're buying at Sam's and BJ's. So our price is your price. And so, some people just feel better like taking their kids and making an experience. Like I want them to pick out the food that they would like, because this is for kids, and that's usually non-perishable items we have to put in there. We try to do single serve, pop top cans if it's ravioli, peanut butter crackers, small boxes of cereal, juice boxes, things like that. But then some people are like, I don't really have the time. I would rather do a check. So, either is the same. And
where could they send that check? Folks that are listening right now, where does that money go?
I have a website. It's backpackbuddiesga.org.
Okay.
So they can give through there and find out. There's actually a food list on there. And a volunteer calendar on there, because we will be putting new opportunities for the summer. And it is a great thing for kids to do. And that's the number one feedback we get too, is just there's not many things that you can take kids to volunteer. And we have a group of homeschool moms that comes every Wednesday morning, and they have toddlers, and they do it. So it's so much fun.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that it's exploded. Of course it would.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a need in Coweta County.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, it's such a big deal. Well, so what are you guys doing ministry out of the coffee shop and cafe too?
I would say just in principle, I feel like that was kind of our call, nothing like organized, so to speak, other than, we host groups on Sunday nights.
Okay. That's with Bethel.
And we were meeting. It may not even be updated yet, because we need to meet with Tom and Vicky Chimento, but we're meeting every Sunday night at 6:00 now. We were meeting the first and third Sunday, and that's kind of in flux. We've got some. For us, the passion is to connect with people in our city and to cheer them on their journey of following Jesus, and look for opportunities to connect with other people who might not know him.
Are you guys enjoying Bethel?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Loving it. How long?
It's kind of been a bummer here lately. We've been in some transition with our staff, and whenever that happens, we work more. So,
Sure.
Being open 7 days a week,
we all flipped that Saturday night to Sunday morning really quick on us.
Yeah.
But we noticed.
I
We're
know.
like, where are they?
I know. But so we will work it out.
But
And then there was the mud. That was fun. We were one of those fun people that.
Did y'all get stuck?
Oh yeah, I think all three of us drove separate, and all three of our cars got stuck.
It was awesome.
Guys.
I was loving
Bring
those
it on.
memes.
We were cracking up. I saw the meme today with the parking attendants, and it was like mud wrestler. I don't know. I was dying in the
awesome.
car. It was so
For
funny.
those of you listening
That's your team.
all over the planet, we've moved onto our property. We have 100 acres in Tyrone, Georgia, and it's the most beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean,
It is.
Georgia's so pretty. I mean, it's just the most beautiful state, but it's
So
just
pretty.
gorgeous property. So we're building. We're in the process of building, and it has been. Did you guys know? We have had more rain this year than we have had since 1946 or
48.
7.
Oh, I believe it.
I believe it. Yeah.
The years. And
Yeah.
we're like, let's get onto the property right now.
It's awesome.
So there is mud
so
everywhere. It's
good.
been hilarious. So we just decided to go with it. We held a meme contest.
It's so funny.
Funny.
It's
awesome.
awesome.
It was funny.
Well, Brent, you're a musician, and you're doing some music with us, aren't you?
Yeah, playing from time to time. I think I'm coming up on Bethel Equip
Bring it
this
on.
coming up week, so I'm excited about that and
Good.
get the chance to hit the skins a little bit.
How's that going?
It's good, yeah.
Yeah, it's going
Yeah,
good.
having some fun.
When did you start playing? Oh,
I don't know.
gosh.
I guess probably high school. You talking about with Bethel or
Just
just in general?
period.
Yeah,
You've
probably
always
high
played?
school.
Okay.
Yeah. And I always say I play with more heart than I do skill.
I
but
don't know.
Yeah.
It looks like skill. Does it
Yeah.
look skill to you?
He's
Yeah.
a worshiper for sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
absolutely. Dude,
Yeah.
He's so fun to watch. I love
Yep.
it. I fangirl.
You do that fangirl,
Do.
April.
Do fangirl. He's adorable. But
Awesome.
I would just like to say, personally for us, we were in a season of ministering for so long, and it did not end on a bad note. When we stepped out of the church, I think everyone just realized there were separate visions, and but coming here was just it was a healing balm. It's such an encouraging culture, and it was exactly what we needed in that season. And not, like I said, not that we came out of it beat down or run over, but it was also in a time where we decided to remodel a 100-year-old home and buy a business. And, we were just exhausted, mind, body, and soul. And it has, just with you asking, and then we kind of jumped past it. I just want to come back and say, it was God put us right where we needed to be, and our kids. It was the same thing for whatever reason. Our kids are a little bit more reserved. I don't know why. I don't know where they get it from because, we're both extremely extroverted. We've got two really introverted kids, and I just thought they were going to be like, oh, like this is too crazy, and they all. It was like the only place that they unanimously were like, yes, this is where we need to be. And so
Wow.
it was great. And we've really enjoyed it. Such wonderful, encouraging people.
We're a group of leaders. There are so many leaders, which is, it's phenomenal to me that it works as well as it does, because people usually avoid getting this many leaders together.
Yeah.
But there's no tension.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
It
good.
is.
Can you expand on that about how healing it was to be there? I'd like to hear more about that, because this is time 8,000.
Yeah.
Really?
Again,
It's a
we're
lot.
just so many church leadership folks, and it's not that it was ever negative, but there's just something coming here and being filled.
Well,
and filled
absolutely,
and filled.
absolutely. And I also think, the whole culture is like pulling the gold out of people. That was something we needed to hear, because we had kind of been, like I said, we weren't in a horrible place, but you're still a little hurt and tired and
Jaded.
maybe a little.
Come on. We got it.
But
Maybe a little cynical.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
much happens in a church,
Yeah.
and you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
it was a great church and
it
great
was
people. We
great
loved
people.
your church.
There's no one we've said it. I mean, it's just a testimony to the Lord. There's
It
no
was.
one that we couldn't walk down the street and not just embrace
It's a
and be
testimony.
like, we missed you, we love you. It was
Yeah.
there was nothing negative, but it was still just altogether a challenging season. So just to be here in this culture of honor where people are just constantly speaking life, and and in a prophetic culture where there might have been some wounds and just a word given, and one cool word. And this is when we first jumped into everything, we hit some hard times to the point where you're like, God, did we miss your voice? Like, we've always, anyone who's been around us has known that this is what we want to do, this coffee shop thing. But there was a time, and he had to take on another full-time job.
Yeah.
I had been homeschooling and momming for,
Right.
I had never worked since my kids were born, and
Wow.
especially full-time. I picked up a few hours here and there, but all of a sudden, like overnight, our kids don't see us,
Wow.
because our busiest time are weekends and holidays when they're out of school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was a hard time for all of us. And then financially, like I said,
Whoa.
remodeling a 100-year-old house and building a business. So
Don't
do it. That's our
Did I-
gift to
don't do
you,
it.
to you listeners out
Do
there.
it one at a time.
And
I have a word from the Lord. Don't
Yes.
do it.
don't do it. And that is the voice of God, and the voice of wisdom. But I remember, and you guys know because you've known Brent almost as long as I have. But he is such an optimistic, encouraging, always smiling person. And when I walked around a corner one day and saw him in tears, there was a minute, and if you don't want me to say this, you can tell Josh to edit it out later. But there was a time where when we were at the end of the church thing, like our personal account, our coffee shop account, and the church account were all overdrawn in the same week. Just coincidentally, and because the church had been going through some hard times, and we're like, okay, God, and I'd never seen him discouraged, and we just like, that broke my heart. And I'm like, you can't be upset because you're the strength, And it was just this crying out, but it was like, we had just another business owner in the community. She came by and gave me a book, and I was like, oh, thank you. That's so sweet. And she's like, the Lord told me to give this to you. Well, I opened it, and it was like $800.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking it was just a book. I was like, oh, thank you, Lord.
Nobody knew anything.
No. And then, we got a check in the mail that next day from someone who we took in. Well, she went to Bethel School, and we let her live with us when we had our bigger house. So she stayed with us the whole time she was in her first year of school. And she just randomly decided to send us a thank you at this time, and it was $100. Wow. And so it was just like God's constant, like, I'm going to provide for you through this season. But I say all that to say, and I know you guys will, do what you need to do, edit me out, shorten me up. But
don't do it. We won't.
You can. I promise. We like to talk. But Dan Weber was one here who, when we went through what is it called?
It's Bethel
Life?
Equipped now, but Bethel
Bethel
Life at the time.
Bethel Life. But when we were first kind of jumping in here, there was one night where he gave words, and he gave us a word. And this was in like still kind of just starting to
place,
turn the corner of like,
Right.
there'll actually be money in the account this week.
I see light at the end of this tunnel.
Yeah.
He gave us a word about like in a season coming like sooner than you could think. Basically, you're going to have so many opportunities. Your biggest dilemma is going to be like which way to turn and what to do. And like God's going to be bringing so many, whether it's business and we're like hitting that season right now, of like I just have been thinking about that word so much in the last month, because that's what we're praying through now is just like, which thing do we do, or where do you want us, to expand or to be? And so that's just one of the examples of like those words were so encouraging when we were kind of still in that really tough place. So like, we were clinging to words of hope like that. And, and it's so prevalent in this culture that is just, one of the comforting things about being here. So,
Yeah.
and of course the worship, I'm a worshiper. I know, and I could bask in the worship 24/7.
Yeah.
That is well said, April.
Good.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well said.
Absolutely. And I think for me too, just the encouragement, that comes from people that you run into here, there's really never, people, you go somewhere and you share somebody your dreams, and some of the things that you're going through, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Well, it seems to get ramped up, 100-fold here in this culture, It's like, that's amazing. I want to cheer you on toward those dreams. And
let's pray about it right now.
And usually a prophetic word comes from that, or, something, and that's just been really timely for us, and I'll just be honest, you come out of a season where you're sharing your dreams and you're, even if they are kind of ADD and all over the place, where you're like, hey, can we just like stay here at this moment for a little while? Can we develop this dream that you had, 6 months ago for
That's
a little
me.
bit?
That's my voice in his ear.
And there's probably some wisdom in that, but at the same time, just being like the wind of encouragement blowing on you is really refreshing, So it's been really good. And I'll just say there's been
And
a
you're
lot.
here.
Yeah,
And the Kuntzes are here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yes,
Hallelujah.
bonus.
exactly. And we've seen a lot of people that we've run into and met here while we've been at Bethel. They come to the coffee shop and hang out with us, and that's been really neat, just to kind of say hello. Most of the times it's busy, and we're just like waving from a distance, hope everything's good, but it's really cool to see familiar faces coming in, you know, that you're walking alongside.
Well, then what is next? What do you guys see coming? And if you can't share specifically about all of these opportunities, you sure don't have to, but just in the spirit, what is the Lord saying to you? What's coming up for the Andersons with all the good things he's got started?
Yeah,
Take that.
I'll just say, I mean, we're looking to grow in our business, business model, and we feel like we do. We're learning a lot. We've learned a lot, and we feel like we do a lot of things well. Again, we're in process. We've never really arrived, but we're looking to take what we're doing and expand in some other location, and we've got some opportunities there. Still kind of on the beginning stages of that, so nothing really in concrete, but we're excited about the different opportunities. We seem to be connecting as well with other people, in the coffee industry, and learning a lot about that, and really kind of stepping up our game there. So excited.
Definitely increase. Did
Yeah.
he speak increase like in this word, and then you saw it, or are you guys just walking into increase?
Oh,
We felt like it
absolutely,
was a word
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
like, hey, there's something coming, and it's going to be expansion. It's going to be, opportunities that you'll just have to, lean into the Lord and lean into
Nice.
discernment on even which ones to, kind of head towards. So we're excited
Yeah,
about
we're
that.
we're excited about the next thing we have no idea how to do. I mean, bring it, because that's where he shows up. I feel like he never calls us to do things that we are adequately equipped to do. So
Yeah.
I love this about you, that you guys, you walk into increase.
so
But
do I.
I love this. It sounds like to me, I'm wondering if this season is going to be like a place prepared before you. I'm not saying that right. You're about to walk into something like the Lord has prepared it, as if he hadn't prepared the rest of it. He has. But you guys are just such pioneers. That's a good word. Like you just go out and you just do it. You hear and you run. But I'm wondering, and I am saying this prophetically, if this season is just laid out in front of you. I really am.
Oh.
Just
I hope
listening
so.
to you talk.
Yeah, we'll receive that. Kind of like, maybe this is a word just of encouragement for people who maybe identify with the ADD dreaming that we've described a little bit. I felt like over the last 5 years or so, I have been liberated from the fear of failure.
Awesome.
And
Say that, man.
and
Just say
and that is a very freeing thing, because I at times I was gripped with the fear of failure, gripped to immobility, because what if this happens? What if that happens? And I think a lot of the beauty of God is He's at work every time in every circumstance for my benefit and for His glory. And we went through the building crisis and pretty much lost everything. Lost our dream home,
lost a house, lost our credit,
just lost everything.
lost our retirement.
And I think the redemptive work of God in that was now to look back and we can say, well, what's the worst that can happen? We lose everything. And we can say, well, we've done that before. We don't necessarily want to go back there, but if that's the worst that can happen, we're going to blaze a trail, because we survived that by the grace of God. And, for me, the word is, if you're dreaming about something, to me, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough,
You guys live that. You really do. You've been
If
faithful
they
to that.
don't just completely, just kind of grip you a little bit, they're probably not big enough. If God wants to do immeasurably more than we can ask or even think, I can, just get an idea that He wants us to dream big. And, so, we're in the middle of all these conversations about different opportunities. And again, we have like no money, no resources, no, and things are like falling in place. And, we'll see what the end of that story looks like. But, the reality is, when God is at work, you
Yeah.
know, you can trust that He's going to take care of things, you know. And, you know, at the same time, we're surrounding ourselves with people that, you know, that wise counsel, and we're not like loose cannons on deck, just gunslinging, you know, shoot and aim or something like that. But we're trying to do this as wise as we possibly can. But I just take great comfort in the fact that the Apostle Paul, I think it's in Acts 16, you know, like went 3 different directions, you know, trying to figure out what his missionary journey looked like. Went this direction, the Holy Spirit prevented him. Went that direction, the Holy Spirit prevented him. Went that direction, you know, this guy wrote a third of the New Testament, you know, and he doesn't have like a clear picture necessarily of what direction to head. And then the vision from the man, you know, of the man from Macedonia came to him, and he went there and launched a ministry and started a church, that sort of thing. I just take great comfort in the fact that if the Apostle Paul can kind of, you know, go in different directions, then, you know, the Lord's given me some freedom to do that and not think in terms of success and failure or right and wrong decisions, but more about God. I want to lean into you. I want to do your will. I want to be, you know, with you on this mission journey. But I think he gives us some freedom to dream and kind of walk those roads with him, you know.
Is that what freedom from failure sounds like? When it's not failure, success, it's just leaning into Jesus?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, to me, again, if God is at work in every one of my circumstances, the ones that were meant for destruction in my life, the ones that we can celebrate, and everything in between, if he's at work in every one of those for my good and for his glory, that's what, you know, that's what his word says, then, you know, there is no success and failure. There's just a journey of discovering who you are and whose you are, and his work of conforming me to the image of Christ from one degree of glory to another, you know.
How did you arrive at that? And did you start out definitely saying this is success and failure?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was always, you know, like, well, I did good at that, and you know, April can tell you the first years of preaching, which, just if I'm completely honest, terrified me. You know, wake up and spent a lot of time. With I was trying to find a good way to say it. My stomach upset, you know.
Oh my gosh, we just heard this.
Yes.
We were literally, I don't think you would mind, we were at dinner with Danny Silk, and he said his first 2 years pastoring the same way.
Yeah.
He was like, I was just sick the whole time.
Yeah, every time. You know, because there's a lot of weight.
Good company, Brent Anderson.
Exactly.
You're the only one.
Exactly. You know, and so, you know, I spent a lot of weekly, Monday morning conversations with myself. Well, I really bombed that one, or, well, that was decent, you know, and usually I couldn't figure out which one was which, you know, because when I really thought I hit it out of the park, you know, people were like, what in the world is he saying? But, you know, when you feel like
And
you
vice
bombed
versa.
it,
And
you know,
vice
they're like,
versa.
that's the best thing I've ever heard in my life.
Are you kidding me? I had to run to the bathroom afterwards.
Exactly. So, I mean, I started to identify successes and failures in that way. And, you know, to me, that's just messed up. I feel like, obviously, we can learn from places where we have challenges. And God was the best teacher. You know, Jesus was the best teacher, so he wants us to grow in our ability to do that, you know, to become more like him. But for me, it wasn't about teaching a teaching win or a teaching loss. It was about God at work and what he's ministering to the people that were listening. And I, you know, I did what I knew to do, and he was at work in that, you know, in that season.
I think it's also letting go of people's expectations, or, you know, because being freed from what people are going to think or say, you know, because if you look at what, you know, we've talked about before, we could look at our time at the church where we were as a failure almost, because when we closed the doors, you know.
We didn't set out to do that, actually. We didn't set out to close the doors. So
No. I'm just saying, like it dwindled. It, you know, if you judged it how many people would, which is budgets and butts and what do they say? Buildings, budgets and butts is how you judge
Butts and
growth.
chairs and cars in the parking lot.
You know, like it would be easy to look at ourselves and be like, wow, we really, honey, I shrunk the church.
Yeah,
That was our theme, right? But,
Somebody write a book quick.
Buddy April.
Exactly.
but you know, it's just like, you know, we had a different vision and it was a little out of the box for the Bible Belt. Maybe it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, and we had a sweet small group of people, but it was time to go to the next thing that God had for us, you know. But it would be easy for people or us to look at, wow, you really messed that one up. Okay, well, you know, but so it's also just being free, I think,
Good.
from that, because man can look at things and you know, judge it as a failure, and what
Wow.
you know, and when you're totally relying on God and what He says, then it's a whole nother ball game.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very freeing.
Wow. You guys, that is beautiful. I love the whole concept of being free from the fear of failure.
Yeah.
I'm
Way to
still
go.
working on it. He's
One flesh, sister, one flesh.
Yeah.
Right?
Come on.
all over the place.
Exactly.
Well, but it is total. It's just perspective. It's how
Yeah.
much of the truth. I mean, it's failing forward. It's learning.
that's good, babe.
And I love,
That's really good.
you just simplified it, Brent, for me completely. It's just doing away with success and failure. And it's just leaning in. Father, I'm just going to lean in. And
Yeah.
then what? He defines it from there?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like to me, we're invited into a relationship with Almighty God. You know, the Father, the good Father. You know, He wants to commune with us. You know, and you know, if I'm transparent, you know, with the way that I operate with my kids, you know, I've learned a lot about. You know, at first I probably approached them with right and wrong, you know, like this is acceptable, this is not acceptable behavior, or what have you. You know, these grades are good, these are not, you know, it was all in success and failure kind of terms. But I'm learning here as my kids have gotten older to walk with them through certain challenges, and you know, try to invite them into relationship with me, let them know that I'm there for them, that I support them, even in a quote unquote perceived failure. You know,
Sure.
I'm right there. We may talk about you know, how to learn from certain circumstances or certain things, but it's more about inviting them into relationship with me. And I feel like if I'm that way, then God's so much more
Right.
that way with me. And He's inviting me to relate to Him. He longs to be with me, you know. And, you know, in that reality, to me, it's not about right and wrong, good and bad decisions. It's more about God being present in everything, and God being at work in everything. And the times where I take off, I'm going to make the assumption if the Holy Spirit prevented Paul from going a certain direction, you know, He might prevent me in some way and say, you know what, let's go over here, you know, but not in a shaming, you know, kind of demeaning way. It's more about, hey, I've got something better for you, you know.
Right.
And, you know, the challenge, just to be honest, for me, the challenge is to discern that and to, you know, walk through that relationally. But I feel free to walk in that, you know, even if I, quote unquote, like take the direction that He's maybe not calling me to take, you know, just in principle, I think He's going to walk me back toward where He wants me to go.
Rewriting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's been really liberating for me, you know, and I you know, there's a lot of things. April mentioned, you know, the financial stuff, and we've had a certain level of anxiety there, but I'm free from that. You know, we've got so many big decisions right now, and we've kind of been discussing different things, and I just really feel at peace because I feel like God's at work.
That's huge.
And I don't
Yeah.
have to force anything. I can just keep stepping one day at a time, one step at a time, and watch Him work, you know. who knows? Maybe we'll open up another coffee shop with no money. We'll have like.
I
of those.
mean,
Yeah.
You've done it already.
Yeah,
once.
We have. It's our
Isn't that what the
specialty.
testimony is? Do it again. Come on.
There we go. There we
Oh,
go.
Brent and April Anderson, you guys, thanks so much for coming in. You guys are special.
We appreciate you
really
having
are.
us. It's
You-
been
You're
fun.
precious. It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always
treat.
open up this time to our people. Are you hearing anything specific for anybody? Did your heart leap anywhere? Is there anything you want to release or share, or any word of knowledge?
Yeah, I feel like the freedom thing is something that keeps resonating. I'm not really good at articulating it, but just that the Lord is inviting you to relate to Him, to be in communion and His beloved. There's something amazing about being fully known and fully accepted by God, and one of His beloved children. I would just encourage anyone who struggles with that reality. Maybe you're thinking right now that maybe you feel like God's always mad at you, or you don't have that opportunity to relate to Him. I just want you to know that He says that you have unsurpassable worth and value to Him.
So good.
You are created in His image, and you are worth Him dying. Not just to free you from sins or to free you from whatever mistakes you've made, which would have been enough, but to invite you into relationship, to
So good.
get up close and personal with the Father.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
that love can drive out that fear, and that kind of love that we can't understand, but yet we're called to know, we're invited to know.
It's awesome.
That will drive out any fear.
Yes.
Awesome. It's beautiful.
And mine would be, don't be afraid of big dreams. If you feel equipped to do something, that's probably not God. If you have the resources and the skills, it's probably not God.
Too small.
Exactly. If it scares you to death and you have no idea how it's going to work out, that's where He shows up
It's
and,
beautiful.
step into it. And
And that's your testimony. You're sticking to
yeah,
it.
and it's cooler when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Learn the fun way. Let God be your teacher.
Oh, that's beautiful. Let God be your teacher.
So good.
I was feeling somebody's eyes are being healed right now.
Yeah,
You'll
yeah.
even be able to take your glasses off and see really clearly. So take them off and start focusing. Like get out your
Sweet.
book with the little bitty print.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to read
That's
it.
great. That's a
And I
good
feel
word.
like you've been interceding and haven't seen anything yet, but that's okay. Those things are just funny. They're just funny. It happened. They're just funny. Take your glasses off. You'll be able to read. And then somebody has it's a ringing. It's been a ringing in your left ear, and I feel like you just heard a really loud pop, and something was healed, and that ringing is over. I feel like it was really bugging you. It's been really bothering you. It's probably from some sort of damage. Like it was an external. Something happened. I feel like something messed your ear up.
Wow.
But anyway, it's been ringing really loud, and there was a pop, and it's good. So don't worry about that either. Your ear is healed. So that's good news.
Yeah. So I actually was hearing for you guys over at the coffee house. I felt like the Lord is like He's shifting the atmosphere and just changing of culture of where you are in a really tangible way. And it's the peace that you were talking about earlier. Is not just peace. It's actually His presence of healing, and you're going to actually start to see people get healed of terminal illnesses in your
Yes.
in your building.
Amen.
It's been a prayer,
and,
actually.
Yeah, and it's actually going to start a shift in a culture because people's minds are going to open up to God's spiritual work in their life. And so I feel like you guys are really going to be part of just shifting a culture in your community. That's actually, it's going to domino. It's
Amen.
going to be a really huge
Yes.
effect. So,
Come on.
so we just declare
That's
that.
good.
And I was actually hearing for people who are listening to terminal illness, terminal cancer, just terminal illness that is plaguing honestly our planet, but where you're finding that people you're struggling with that terminal illness is being healed right now. I just know it. So
Amen.
Awesome.
So just receive that. If you're battling anything that's terminal, go back to the doctor and have them check.
Awesome.
Check
That's beautiful.
check on that diagnosis. So
Yay,
Yeah.
yay,
Amen.
Jesus. He does so good.
he really does so good. So if any of that minister to you guys, if any of our listeners right now, you can email us. We would love to hear your story. We would love to hear your testimony and be able to rebroadcast it again. So simple way to do it, it's bachats@bethelAtlanta.com. Email us today. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you guys for listening. We absolutely are happy to have you. Remember that we love you.
And Jesus loves you too.